aliens watched a human jog under 5 gravity and filed a hazard report. Part 1. Had worked at the Tranquil Observer Research Station for 7 standard years. In all that time, she had never seen anything that made her doubt her sensors. The station orbited 7, a mining world where gravity reached 5.2 times the Earth standard. No living creature walked on that surface. Only machines did the work below, digging metals from rock that would crush any biological form. She was a Marathi, a species that evolved on a small moon with gentle gravity. Her bones were thin and light. Her muscles were made for floating, not fighting against the pull of heavy worlds. When she moved, it was with careful grace, like a dancer who might break if she stepped too hard. The morning shift had been quiet. Sat at her monitoring station, watching data streams flow across her screen. Temperature readings, pressure levels, drone positions, everything was normal. Everything was always normal on 7 because nothing alive could survive down there to make things abnormal. Then her console made a sound she had not heard in years, a biological life sign alert. Blinked her large, dark eyes and leaned closer to the screen. The system must be broken, she thought. Perhaps dust had gotten into the sensors. Perhaps a solar flare had confused the equipment. She ran a diagnostic check. Everything came back green. The sensors were working perfectly. She pulled up the visual feed from the surface cameras. What she saw made her thin fingers freeze above the controls. A human was running on the surface of 7. Not stumbling, not crawling toward shelter. Running, moving in steady loops around the landing pad like this was a normal thing to do. The creature wore only a tight suit of compression fabric and a small breathing mask. No exoskeleton, no gravity support system, just flesh and bone moving against a force that should have pinned it to the ground like an insect under a boot. Check the personnel files. The human was Lieutenant Wei, an engineering consultant who had arrived 3 station cycles ago. She had been hired to help improve the mining drone efficiency. Had seen her in the mess hall a few times. The human had seemed normal enough, quiet and polite, with dark hair tied back and a quick smile. Now that same human was jogging under gravity that would turn into a puddle of broken bones and torn organs. The timer on screen showed that the human had been out there for 11 minutes. 11 minutes of sustained physical activity at 5.2 times Earth gravity. Quickly searched the Galactic Union hazard database. No species in the entire had a physiology rated for extended exertion above 2.8 times standard gravity. The human was operating nearly double that limit. His hands shook as she opened an emergency communication channel to the human's earpiece. "Lieutenant," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "This is Senior Safety Coordinator. You are in immediate danger. Please return to the airlock at once. Medical teams are standing by." On the camera feed, watched the human slow to a stop. Wei looked up at the nearest drone camera. She raised one hand and waved. Then she smiled behind her breathing mask. "Morning," the human's voice came through the speaker, slightly breathless but cheerful. "Beautiful day for a run, isn't it?" Could not find words. She stared at the screen as the human began jogging again, legs pumping against rock that should have been impossible to walk on, let alone run. "Lieutenant, please," finally managed. "The gravity readings show 5.2 G. Your body cannot handle this strain. You must come inside." "I know the readings," Wei said. She was not even breathing very hard. "I calculated everything before I came out. Got my oxygen levels right, checked my suit seals. It's good training. My bones need the stress." "Your bones need..." Could not finish the sentence. The words did not make sense. Bones needed protection from stress, not more of it. Every species in the galaxy knew this basic truth. You avoided gravity. You built machines to do heavy work. You did not go out and exercise in conditions that would kill you. "Don't worry so much," Wei said. "I've been building up to this for 3 weeks. Started with short walks, then longer walks, then light jogs. My body adapts. That's what human bodies do." Watched the human complete another lap around the landing pad. The creature's face was red and covered in sweat. The muscles in her legs bunched and released with each step. The ground shook slightly from the impact of her feet, or at least imagined it did. Other crew members had gathered behind now. She heard their whispers and gasps. A named made a clicking sound of disbelief. An engineer slid closer to the screen, its gelatinous body quivering. "Is that real?" they asked. "Is this a recording?" "It is happening right now," said. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "The human is jogging on 7 in 5.2 G." They made another clicking sound. "That is not possible. My species cannot even stand in 3G for more than a few minutes. We would suffer organ failure." "And yet," said, "she continues." They watched in silence as Wei completed 5 more laps, 23 minutes total on the surface. Then, finally, the human slowed to a walk and headed toward the airlock. She was still waving at the cameras. "Same time tomorrow," Wei said through the communicator. "Unless you want to join me." No one answered. The idea was so absurd that it did not deserve a response. Sat back in her chair after the airlock sealed behind the human. Her hearts were beating fast, both of them. She had witnessed something that her training told her was impossible, yet she had seen it with her own eyes. The data was real. The human was real. She opened a new file on her console and began typing. The words came slowly at first, then faster as her scientific mind took over. Hazard report, class unknown. Subject, human physical capabilities. Location, 7 surface. Description, on this date, a human crew member was observed engaging in voluntary recreational running in gravitational conditions exceeding all known biological tolerances. No apparent injury or distress was noted. Further investigation required. She paused, then added one more line. Recommend immediate review of all existing human capability assessments. Current data may be significantly incomplete. Behind her, the other crew members were still talking in hushed voices, heard words like impossible and dangerous and how. She understood their confusion. She shared it. But she also felt something else growing in her chest, something that might have been fear or might have been wonder. Humans had only joined the Galactic Union 50 years ago. They were considered a young species, still learning their place among the stars. Their planet was classified as a moderate world, nothing special. Their technology was crude compared to older civilizations. They were supposed to be unremarkable. Looked at the replay of Wei running under that crushing gravity, her body doing what no body should be able to do. Perhaps, she thought, the galaxy had been wrong about humans. Perhaps they had been very wrong indeed. Part 2. Station Commander had 4 arms, and he used all of them when he was stressed. Right now, 2 were clasped behind his back, 1 was rubbing his ridged forehead, and the 4th was tapping rapidly on the conference table. The sound echoed through the meeting room like a small drum. 7 members of the Emergency Review Board sat around the curved table. They represented 5 different species, all of them staring at the human who sat calmly in the center of the room. Lieutenant Wei looked relaxed, almost amused. She had changed out of her compression suit and now wore the standard station uniform. Her hair was still damp from a shower. "Let me understand this correctly," said. His voice was careful and controlled. "You went to the surface of a 5.2 G world, without authorization, without protective equipment, and you did this to exercise." "That's right," Wei said. She smiled. "Morning cardio helps me stay sharp." His 4th arm stopped tapping. "Morning cardio," he repeated flatly. "Yes, cardiovascular exercise. It's good for the heart and lungs. Humans need to move regularly or our bodies start to break down. I've been stuck on this station for 3 weeks without proper gravity, so I figured I'd use what's available." A scientist named leaned forward. His large eyes blinked independently as he processed this information. "Forgive me, Lieutenant, but I must ask. Are you saying that your species requires high-gravity stress to maintain health?" "Not high gravity specifically," Wei said. "Just regular physical stress. Our bodies need pressure to stay strong. If we don't use our muscles, they weaken. If we don't stress our bones, they become brittle. Humans who spend too long in low gravity have serious health problems when they return to normal conditions. The room went very quiet. Who sat at the far end of the table watched her colleagues process this information. She could see the confusion on their faces. For most species in the galaxy, physical stress was something to avoid. Their bodies did not get stronger from strain. They simply broke. "How did your skeleton remain intact?" asked. "The gravitational force on 7 should have snapped your bones with each step." Wei shrugged. It was a very human gesture that the aliens had learned to recognize. Bone density adaptation. When you put stress on human bones, they respond by becoming denser and stronger. I've been conditioning myself for 3 weeks. Started with short walks, then built up gradually. My body adjusted. "Your body adjusted," said slowly, "to 5 times normal gravity." "Well, it was hard at first," Wei admitted. "The first few days I could barely stand. My muscles burned, everything hurt. But I kept at it and my body figured out what it needed to do. That's how humans work. We break down a little, then rebuild stronger." The engineer that had seen earlier rippled with concern. Its gelatinous body shifted colors as it spoke. "This process you describe, the breaking and rebuilding, does it not cause you pain?" "Oh, definitely," Wei said. "Lots of pain, but that's normal. Pain tells us we're working hard enough. No pain, no gain, as we say." "You seek out pain," they said. It was not a question. "Deliberately, as part of your health routine." "I mean, we don't seek it out exactly, but we accept it as part of getting stronger. Exercise is supposed to be uncomfortable. That's how you know it's working." The station's medical AI had been running analyses throughout the conversation. Now it projected a holographic display above the table. The image showed a human skeleton surrounded by data streams. "According to my assessment," the AI said in its calm, artificial voice, "human musculoskeletal systems can adapt to gravitational loads significantly higher than previously documented. Their cardiovascular system compensates through mechanisms I can only describe as aggressively redundant. Multiple backup systems engage automatically under stress. Heart rate increases. Blood pressure adjusts. Oxygen delivery optimizes. The human body appears designed for survival under conditions that would overwhelm most other biological forms." The hologram shifted to show Wei's vital signs from her morning run. Heart rate elevated but stable. Blood oxygen levels maintained. Core temperature high but controlled. Every system was working at maximum capacity, yet nothing was failing. The engineer asked the question that several others were clearly thinking. "Are humans a militarized species?" Wei laughed. It was a genuine sound, warm and surprised. "What? No, I mean we have militaries, but this isn't a soldier thing. This is just how we stay healthy. Regular people do this. Children do this. Running around, playing sports, lifting heavy things. It's normal." "Children," said. All 4 of his arms had gone still. "Human children engage in physical activities that would hospitalize adults of most other species." "I guess so," Wei said. She seemed to realize for the first time how strange this sounded to her audience. "On Earth, kids run around all day. They climb trees, jump off things, wrestle with each other. It's how they develop. If they don't get enough physical activity, they become restless and unhappy." Thought about Marathi children, who were carried carefully for the first 5 years of life because their bones were too soft for walking. She thought about young, who floated in protected pools until their bodies. The idea of children deliberately throwing themselves around, climbing and jumping and falling, was horrifying. "Commander," the medical AI said, "I recommend updating our species' capability assessments. Current documentation significantly underestimates human physical tolerances." Nodded slowly. His expression was troubled. "Lieutenant, I must ask you to remain inside the station until we complete a full safety assessment. Your morning activities have raised concerns that need to be addressed." "Sure, no problem," Wei said. She did not seem bothered by the restriction. "But I do need some way to exercise. If I don't stay active, my body will start to deteriorate. Does the station have a gym with adjustable resistance equipment?" The committee members exchanged glances. The station's recreation area had some basic fitness equipment, but it was designed for species with normal physical requirements. Light stretching machines, gentle resistance bands, nothing that could challenge a human who jogged in 5.2 G for fun. "We will find a suitable space," said. He quietly instructed an aide to requisition structural reinforcement for whatever room they designated. The floors would need to be strengthened. The walls might need bracing. If the human was going to exercise indoors, they needed to make sure she did not accidentally punch through a bulkhead. Wei stood up from her chair. "Thanks, Commander. I appreciate you being understanding about all this. I know it must seem strange to you." "Strange is one word for it," said. "Can I ask you something?" Wei said. "What do your species do when you need to get somewhere quickly, or when you need to lift something heavy, or when you face a physical challenge you can't avoid?" "We use machines," said. "Or we hire species better suited to the task, or we find another solution that does not require physical effort." "Huh," Wei said. She seemed to think about this for a moment. "I guess that makes sense. Humans we do it ourselves. We like doing it ourselves. There's something satisfying about pushing your body to its limits and seeing what you can accomplish." "Even when it hurts," the said. "Especially when it hurts," Wei said with a grin. "That's when you know you're really alive." She walked out of the conference room, leaving behind a table full of aliens who were beginning to understand that humans were something entirely different from what they had assumed. Not more advanced, not more primitive, just built according to a different set of rules. Stayed in her seat as the others filed out. She was thinking about the hazard report she had started earlier. She would need to add a lot more information now, a lot more warnings, a lot more questions. The medical AI spoke into the quiet room. "Coordinator, I have additional data you may find relevant. Lieutenant's file includes information about her. Earth has a gravity of 1G, moderate by galactic standards. However, the planet also has extreme weather patterns, high levels of radiation, dangerous predators, widespread disease, and significant tectonic activity. Humans evolved to survive all of these conditions simultaneously." Absorbed this information. A moderate planet that was actually trying to kill its inhabitants at all times. A species that had not just survived, but thrived by becoming tougher than everything around them. "What else should I know?" she asked. "Humans practice recreational activities that simulate survival conditions," the AI said. "They call them sports: running, climbing, fighting, swimming in cold water, jumping from high places. They do these things for enjoyment." "For enjoyment," repeated. "Yes, they find pleasure in testing their physical limits. They compete against each other to see who can endure the most stress. They give awards to those who perform best." Closed her eyes. When she had woken up this morning, humans had been just another species in the Union. Interesting, certainly. Creative and curious and full of strange ideas, but nothing exceptional, nothing dangerous. Now she understood that the galaxy had been looking at humans the wrong way. Everyone had focused on their technology, their politics, their culture. No one had paid enough attention to the simple fact that humans could survive things that would kill everyone else. She opened her terminal and continued writing her report. There was much more to say now, much more that the Safety Bureau needed to know. Part 3. The Galactic Union Safety Bureau occupied an entire district of the capital world. Thousands of workers processed millions of reports each year, every danger the galaxy had to offer. Most reports were handled by automated systems. Equipment failures, environmental hazards, standard accidents with standard causes. The AI filtered everything, and only the unusual cases reached biological reviewers. This report reached a senior reviewer within an hour of arrival. This was unusual. The average processing time for a new hazard report was 3 standard days, but the automated system had flagged her document with the highest priority code. The reviewer who received it was unnamed. She was old by the standards of her long-lived species, having served in the Bureau for 200 years. In that time, she had seen reports about asteroid impacts, quantum anomalies, and biological weapons. She had classified species as dangerous based on their natural venom or their aggressive behavior. Nothing had prepared her for what she read in this document. She read it twice. Then she read it a third time, checking each data point against the station's sensor logs. The information was accurate. The observations were documented. The conclusions were logical, if deeply disturbing. A human had voluntarily exercised in gravitational conditions that exceeded all known biological limits, not because she was being punished, not because she was trying to prove something to others, simply because she wanted to stay healthy. Opened the Bureau's file on Earth. She had looked at it once or twice before when humans first joined the Union. The planet had seemed unremarkable then. Moderate gravity at 1 g nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, abundant water, a stable star, all the ingredients for comfortable life. Now she read the file more carefully. She paid attention to the details she had previously skipped over. Earth's atmosphere allowed dangerous levels of ultraviolet radiation to reach the surface. Humans had evolved dark pigments in their skin to protect themselves, and these pigments could change based on exposure. Their bodies adapted. Earth's climate varied wildly across the planet. Frozen poles, burning deserts, dense jungles, and vast oceans. Humans lived in all of these environments. They had spread across every corner of their world because no condition was harsh enough to stop them. Earth was filled with predators, large cats that could kill with a single bite, bears that weighed 10 times more than a human, venomous snakes and spiders. And despite all of this, humans had become the dominant species. They had not just survived, they had taken over. There was a notation at the bottom of the file about human recreational activities. Expanded this section and read with growing disbelief. Humans ran long distances for fun, not to escape danger, not to chase food, just to see how far they could go. Some humans ran for entire days without stopping. They called it ultramarathon running. Humans climbed mountains that had no resources at the top. They risked death from cold and thin air just to stand on a peak for a few minutes. Then they climbed back down. Humans jumped out of aircraft with nothing but fabric sheets to slow their fall. They dove into deep water without breathing equipment. They rode waves on small boards and slid down snowy slopes on even smaller ones. All of these activities carried significant risk of injury or death. All of them were considered normal hobbies on Earth. Closed the file and sat back in her chair. Her office was quiet. The walls were decorated with citations for excellent service. She had spent 2 centuries keeping the galaxy safe from dangers. Now she wondered if the greatest danger had been walking among them all along, smiling politely and asking where the gym was. She opened a new document and began drafting a classification recommendation. Class Omega Adaptive Threat. The words felt strange as she typed them. Omega classifications were reserved for the most dangerous things in the galaxy: black holes, quantum cascades, species that could not be reasoned with. Putting humans in this category seemed wrong. Humans were friendly. Humans were helpful. Humans made good conversation and told amusing stories. But humans could also survive things that would kill everyone else, and that made them something the galaxy had never encountered before. Added her notes to the classification. She was careful to explain that the threat was not intentional. Humans were not hostile. They were simply built differently. Their bodies operated according to rules that the rest of the galaxy did not share. In any situation where physical endurance mattered, humans would win. In any environment that pushed other species past their limits, humans would keep going. She recommended updating all cooperation guidelines. Shared facilities should include load-bearing assessments before human access. Equipment designed for general use should be rated against human strength. Safety protocols should assume that human crew members might attempt activities that seemed impossible. At the end of her document, added a footnote. It came from the original report, a detail that had almost made her laugh despite the seriousness of the situation. Lieutenant Wei has requested permission to attempt her jogging routine at 6G once she builds up to it. Once she builds up to it. as if increasing her tolerance to crushing gravity was just a matter of practice, as if the limits that constrained every other species were merely suggestions for humans to ignore. Submitted her report and authorized a new research initiative. The Bureau needed to understand humans better, not as threats to be contained, but as allies whose capabilities had been severely underestimated. If humans could survive conditions that killed everyone else, then humans could do things that no one else could do. They could go places no one else could go. They could solve problems that no one else could solve. The galaxy had spent 50 years treating humans as junior partners in the Union, newcomers who needed guidance and protection. Perhaps it was time to reconsider that relationship. 3 standard days later, received a follow-up report from the Tranquil Observer Station. Lieutenant Wei had completed her safety review. She had been assigned a reinforced exercise room with triple-strength floor plating. The engineering team had watched nervously as she tested their work by doing something called push-ups, which involved lowering her entire body to the floor and then lifting it back up using only her arms. The floor held. The human seemed pleased. According to notes, the human had already begun planning her next surface excursion. She wanted to try a longer route, maybe add some inclines. There were some interesting geological formations about 2 kilometers from the landing pad that she thought would make a good jogging destination. Smiled despite herself. The human was going to keep pushing. That was what humans did. They found their limits and then they tried to exceed them. They treated boundaries as challenges rather than facts. It was terrifying. It was also, in a strange way, inspiring. The Bureau's research team had already begun reaching out to human institutions on Earth. They wanted to learn about human training methods, human endurance sports, human adaptation techniques. The initial responses had been enthusiastic. Humans seemed delighted that the galaxy was finally taking an interest in their physical culture. One human researcher had sent back a message that found both amusing and slightly ominous. It said, "Wait until you hear about our military special forces training, or extreme ironing, or the guy who ran 50 marathons in 50 days. Was not sure she wanted to know what extreme ironing was. She was fairly certain she did not want to know what happened when humans specifically trained for combat instead of just staying healthy. But she would find out. The Bureau would find out, because understanding humans was now a priority for the entire Galactic Union. Somewhere on a station orbiting a crushing world, Wei finished her stretches and walked to the mess hall. She was hungry after her workout. Building muscle required protein, and the station chef had finally figured out how to make something resembling scrambled eggs. She passed a group of researchers who stopped talking when she approached. They stared at her with wide eyes, their gazes tracking down to her legs as if expecting to see something unusual. Wei smiled and nodded politely. She was getting used to the attention. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," one of them managed to reply. Wei continued on her way, already thinking about tomorrow's run. The weather reports showed clear conditions on the surface. Maybe she would try that longer route after all. 2 kilometers out, 2 kilometers back. A nice steady pace, nothing too crazy. Behind her, the researchers watched her go. They had read Hazard Report. They had seen the updated species classifications. They knew now what humans could do. And yet it still seemed impossible. The human looked so ordinary. No claws, no armor, no obvious weapons. Just a small, friendly creature that could survive conditions that would kill any of them. One of the researchers spoke quietly. "My grandfather told me stories about the old times, before the Union. He said there were species so dangerous that entire sectors were sealed off to contain them. Species that could not be fought, only avoided." "Humans are not dangerous," another researcher said. "They're friendly." "Yes," the first one agreed. "That's what makes it so strange. They're friendly. And they're also the most physically capable species we've ever encountered. What does it mean when the toughest creatures in the galaxy are also the ones who smile and wave and ask what's for breakfast?" No one had an answer. In the mess hall, Wei was eating her eggs and planning her weekend. There was a report she needed to finish about drone efficiency. a message to send home to her family on Earth, maybe some reading in her quarters if she had time. Normal things, ordinary life. Just another human making her way through the universe, completely unaware that she had started something much bigger than a morning jog. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again, and in the Safety Bureau on the capital world was already drafting plans for the next phase of research. If humans could do this much by accident, what could they do on purpose? What would happen when the galaxy stopped underestimating them? She suspected they were all about to find out. The end.